Okay, it told me we're recording, so we're live. So welcome everybody to our September meeting of the North Georgia Photography Club. Appreciate everybody being here, and we got a lot going on tonight. Anna's going to be talking to us about creative photography, and we've got 14 images in our challenge tonight, and a few things we're going to advertise. If you've been here for the pre-show, you've already heard all the advertising. So we'll go ahead and get started. If I can click on the right button, I'll get the slideshow started.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
I'll just comment very briefly. Anna, I just sent you a chat through Zoom here that's got the 2 links in it for the shirts.
I just clicked on the chat. I see that. So I'm gonna mute myself and do some shopping while Mike talks.
Okay, let's see. Share my screen. I think this is the right one. All right, can everybody see the big logo?
Yes.
All right, so we got it going.
Yes.
Right.
I'm not.
Yeah, I didn't get home from work until 6:30, and I'm like, I hope I have everything set up. Yeah, if you see a typo in something, or I had the wrong person's name somewhere, that's just because I was working on this late last night and didn't get a chance to proofread. So hopefully there won't be any mistakes. So we're going to do our usual. We're going to talk about business, events that we have going on. Anna's going to speak, and then we'll do our photo challenge. So there we are. I'm not going to go over it, but you see the extra benefits you have for paid members. One of the biggest things is free workshops. If you go to our website at northgeorgiaphotographyclub.com, click on members, and you can see all of the benefits there. And then there's a link to join. It's $20 per person, or $30 for a family membership, and that's for the calendar year.
Mike,
Yeah,
how do we know when our dues are due? Will you be
it's
sending a
for the
notice?
calendar. It's for the calendar year, so basically every January.
Okay,
I will probably start a renewal link or reminders sometime in November. It's usually when I start sending reminders. And that way people won't be surprised. Although I have occasionally had people double pay. They pay in November and then they pay again in January. And I said, no, you don't have to do that. I refund the money. I don't like people paying 2 or 3 years in advance because I can't keep up with that. So, I mean, I appreciate it, but I can't keep up with that.
Mike, do you email out reminders or do you just post on the Facebook page?
Both.
Okay.
The reminders will go out to, I have 2 email lists. I have the regular club list and then I have the paid members list. So the reminders will go out to the paid list. But at the beginning of the year, I do put out an email to the entire list because sometimes there are new people who have joined, or people who have been following and have decided they'd like to join. So yeah, you'll be getting bombarded starting November. So
Right.
hopefully I won't overdo it, but
No, it's better that way. I won't forget.
yeah. So
Hey, Mike, one thought on the benefits. On the benefits, we might want to add a bullet in there about the mentoring program.
Stay tuned. All right, and so you can see the t-shirts and your 2 lovely models. The one in the purple shirt looks a lot better than the other one. But there's the link there if you want to order the t-shirts. And like I said, they're on the Facebook page. I may send out I'll send out another email with the links at some point. It's only been like 2 weeks since I sent out the first email, so I don't want to overdo it. But if Michael is able to get enough sales to move up to the next tier, then he may be able to offer long sleeve shirts and possibly baseball caps and things like that. So we'll just see how it goes. But I know that he has sold over 20 t-shirts in just the first few days. I don't know where we are now, but we definitely appreciate it, and it's a good way to advertise the club, support the club, And when we do have our field trips, it'd be great if everybody who has a shirt wants to wear one when the North Georgia Camera Club shootout is in April comes up. We'd all wear our shirts and make a really good impression. Of course, if we start selling to all the other clubs, we'll all have shirts, but that's okay. So, yeah, we were talking about the mentorship. I told you, we have a mentorship program that we do for paid members. Lisa kind of runs it. Rick is one of the mentors. That was why he was mentioning it. So Lisa, I'll let you kind of describe this, and we'll need to put out another email about this, but go ahead.
Sure. The mentorship program is available, like Mike said, for our paid members. And it's a great program if you're new to photography, even if you've been involved in photography for a while and there's an area that you would like to learn more about, or have someone show you how to photograph a topic that you've never tried before. The mentorship program is a great opportunity for you to do that. We have a whole list of experienced photographers in our club who are willing to spend some of their own time mentoring you and helping you, answering your questions, demonstrating, even going out and shooting with you. So if you're a paid member and you log into the member portion of our website, you can get to the mentorship page. And from there, you can look through this grid of topics that are available for mentorship and find the person that you'd like to mentor you, and their contact information is right there on the page, so you can get in touch with them and coordinate what you're looking for and how they might help you out. So it's a great learning experience for anybody who wants to learn more about photography or brush up on a skill or learn something new. So take advantage of it. It's a wonderful program.
Yeah, I'll try to remember to repost the link on the Facebook pages. It's there somewhere if you scroll them down, but we all need reminders, and maybe we'll send out another email soon about that. But yeah, definitely take advantage of it if you're able to. We got a lot, like Lisa said, we got a lot of people volunteering for this, and take advantage of it. And I'll also say, when we do field trips, we get a combination of experienced photographers and less experienced photographers. And even on our field trips, the experienced photographers are always happy to answer questions and help the less experienced photographers. We saw a lot of that at the 2 Milky Way trips that we did. So never be afraid to ask questions. Education is one of the biggest things we want to do, and get you to whatever point of photography that you want. Different people have different levels they'd like to get to. So we want to get you where you want to be. All right, before we do upcoming trips, I'll just mention workshops. Timmy couldn't make it tonight. And as you can see, we have nothing listed under workshops. So we definitely, if you would like to lead a workshop or know someone who would like to lead a workshop, we've done some of them online, we've done some of them in person. You can contact Timmy Schaller or contact me, and we can get it set up. Mike Robertson, I saw you online. I think Timmy is going to try to contact you, because when you talked last month, we mentioned possibly doing a workshop, so she'll probably be getting in touch with you. But that is one of, so yeah, we're looking for, I'm going to be there. Yeah, the workshops is one of the biggest benefits of membership, because membership is only $20. We don't charge for the workshops. And most places you go to a workshop, you're going to be paying $20 or $30. So just one membership fee, and you've made your money back. So it's worth it. So just watch. Hopefully we'll get 1 or 2 more before the end of the year. Okay, upcoming trips. I'll let Dick talk about that and a couple of things I have on there, but I'll let you talk first, Dick.
Okay, so things are in a great state of flux. The fellow who does the EarthQuest Birds of Prey is starting a job the 1st of October. He's not yet sure whether he'll be able to bring the birds to us on October 23rd. That's a Saturday. He's hoping he gets weekends off. We will know in a couple of weeks whether that's on, off or not, or if it's changed. I have also finally made contact with the director of the North Georgia Astronomical Observatory. And it looks like on October 29th, that evening, it's a Tuesday, I think, maybe a Wednesday. From 9 to 11, we will have an opportunity to photograph both outside and hopefully through their 27-inch reflector telescope. Still working on that, but I'm optimistic we'll pull it together. It'll be short notice and it is a weekday evening, but that's what we get. And it, of course, depends on the sky conditions. For fall colors, I have started the conversation on Facebook, which seems to be going well. What I can do personally will depend on situation at home and how much I can travel. But I will try to find some way to organize. Right now, I'm thinking 2 trips, one over in the general Rabun County, Clayton, War Woman, sort of territory someplace. And I will talk to Anna and see if the waterfalls she was talking about are the same ones I'm thinking about.
Well, and I'm happy to be an ear. Just let me know if you're worried about color and when it's going to happen. I think it may happen early this year. Our dogwoods are already changing up here.
Yeah, the forecasts are saying the last half of October, sort of. So yeah,
reach out if you have any questions about the color coverage, and I'm happy to give you a heads up.
Will do. And then the other one of my personal favorites is always Fort Mountain. So I'm thinking I'll organize one over there as well. So people in the east and people in the west can both get a shot at it. And then as noted, the North Georgia Camera Club Council shootout was postponed till April, but I'll let Mike talk about brewing idea to do a version of that within the group. Over to you, Mike.
The original day for the North Georgia Camera Council was October 30th. We're thinking of reserving the 30th for one of the fall color trips. So we're thinking of doing our own modified version of the shootout, and we're going to call it the North Georgia Photography Club Shootout because we're not very original in naming things, and probably have it either the first or second weekend of November. I think we're leaning more towards the second Saturday of November. The planning committee is going to meet either next week or the week after, and we're going to kind of work out the details, the rules. It's going to be a modified version, probably do 3 topics instead of 5. We're not going to be meeting when we're done shooting to edit together in any buildings. Everybody's going to go home to edit. So you're going to have longer to edit than you would at the actual event. But we are going to require that you keep your metadata on the images when you submit them, because we'll probably start like at 8 and make the cutoff time at noon. So if you send in an image that was taken at 2 o'clock, we know that's past the deadline. So we want to keep some of the rules, but we'll modify them. We're talking about some prizes to give out. I don't want to say what they are now, but we have some neat things that we can give out to the winners in the 3 topics and maybe second and third place. But we're going to work on the details. But several members has said they're interested in doing something. So watch for details coming up, and I hope that you guys will participate in that. And let's see, I think that's it on trips. Watch for information to come out for fall color trips. And once we know for certain about the birds of prey, we'll put a sign up list online and just watch for that. So yeah, COVID has kind of disrupted our September plans, but we'll try to make it up here in October. And so now it's time for Anna's presentation. Anna, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's just Stefano, and my own mother can't pronounce it, so I'll answer
Okay.
to whatever. It's my husband's fault.
Yeah. So I got a little biography here that I'll just go ahead and read for people who are not familiar with Anna. Exploring her 17th year as a professional artist, Anna brings a uniquely creative vision to her photography. In each image, she's found her poetry and has fallen in love with the visual story she tells. You'll find her soft focus flower collection in Emory Healthcare locations throughout Greater Atlanta. She's currently completing her 4th book of photographic meditation, has just launched an exciting series of nature-focused children's books illustrated with her photography. Anna has served on the Georgia Nature Photographers Association Board of Directors, and she currently serves on their operating committee as the chapter committee coordinator. She regularly shares her photography journey, her learning process, and her newest images through her affirmationphotography.com website. She's also a frequent contributor on our Facebook pages. And so, Anna, go ahead. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'll go ahead and let you share your screen again.
Well, I have to say again, I love this logo. I think it's fantastic. I didn't even see all the detail on it, the little ladybugs and the butterflies and the little, it's beautiful. I think it's great.
Notice the lens. It's a really cool lens. It's a zoom lens. It's a super zoom lens, 10 to 1000 millimeters.
1,000.
Yeah. I don't know if Herman designed it or his daughter, Kat, who is a photographer. She majored in photography. She may have been the one who did it, but it is definitely a Thompson original.
It's very whimsical. I love it. I think it's great. Okay, can I go ahead and share the screen? Would that work?
Yes, go ahead. Mhm.
All right. I know I've shot with some of you either on a few of the North Georgia field trips I've been on, or maybe with GMPA, or I know I've done the NG3C. I think I'm saying that right. I've done the shootout a couple of times and I met some folks there. So I was thrilled to get the invitation. I have kind of become, although I'm a trained landscape photographer and I'm getting relatively good at wildlife photography, I'm kind of becoming known for artistic photography, art photography, for a lot of different reasons. But hopefully, as we go through this program, for those of you who don't consider yourself art photographers, you'll sort of get the gist of what I think makes something artistic versus documentary. I think documentary photography is fantastic. And the better you are, the more skilled you are, the more professional you are with your gear and your technique and learning how to use the lenses and how to get what you want out of a scene through composition and setup and lens choice and then processing, the better it's all going to be. But to me, art photography becomes, how does that image make the person who's viewing it feel? And I had a professional photographer I shoot with on a regular basis when I can say something to me not too long ago that I think was the best compliment I've ever gotten from another photographer, in that he said, what I photograph, I seem to, even when I'm in the field shooting with a bunch of other photographers, I'm already thinking about how I want to capture that image to get the reaction from my audience, my viewer, that I'm looking for in the scene. And I came to photography late. I haven't been photographing all that long, but I've been a professional artist for a long time because I'm a writer. So I'm used to dealing with conveying story. I'm used to dealing with my medium, whatever it is. And I never thought I'd have a visual medium because I can't, draw or paint my way out of a box. I'm used to thinking about how the impact of what I'm photographing will affect the person who's going to be looking at it, or the reader who's going to be reading what I'm writing. And now I'm very lucky that I get to start combining, hopefully, my writing and my photography into something totally new. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. So when I do presentations, it's harder with Zoom, but I love interactive presentations. So please, if you have any questions, I'm not going to be able to necessarily catch the chats because I'm going to be running the PowerPoint, but Mike, maybe if you can let me know if somebody has a question in chats, or you're welcome to just speak up and ask. It's not going to bother me. I have a PowerPoint deck, but I'm more than happy to digress as we go and do what your group is most interested in hearing about. I know North Georgia isn't all nature all the time, like Georgia nature photographers, and neither am I, for that matter. I've talked to groups that are mostly urban and street photography. So I'm happy to focus on whatever interests you. And if you have a question about anything, or you'd like me to go into more detail, I'm not going to be doing a lot of processing detail in this, but I can. So I know you had talked about maybe doing workshops. I have come back to groups that I've spoken to with this presentation or a version of this presentation, and then gone through Photoshop and Lightroom and color effects and topaz and all the different things that I do as I start playing with an image to try and get what I want out of it. So I'm happy to do that down the road, or if you have some quick questions tonight that we can maybe answer without having to get into the software, I'm happy to. So that was a very quick kind of preamble into what we're going to be doing. I do a lot of Calvin and Hobbes because to me, this is just happiness. I can't look at a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon without thinking of my son, who's now 25, and his tabby cat when he was growing up, who's now 18, and you may hear him crying at some point because he's not feeling well. But to me, Calvin and Hobbes cartoons get to the heart of what make people feel things. And this opening image, decide what makes you happy, I think is the crux of what drives me to photograph. I'm trying to capture the world the way I'm experiencing it. My business is affirmation photography. You'll see the my website at the bottom, and I've trademarked the term, and it's what I use when I go into Emory Hospital, or now I'm doing donations to local healthcare facilities here. I want people to have a healing, affirming, positive reaction to what I'm photographing. So I'm interacting with my environment, trying to convey what I'm getting out of it and share it with other people. I'm doing what makes me happy. As a photographer, you know, if you want to get more creative with what you're doing, if you're satisfied or growing your skills on the technical side, but you want to be able to show images that are more than a photograph, but a moment. You're conveying to somebody a moment that they're experiencing and then taking it beyond what you photographed and really enjoying it. You can consider some creative techniques. It's all about details, and we get caught up in details with photography, but the details I'm going to be talking about are visualizing the scene, figuring out what in that scene you want to photograph only the way you can photograph it. We're all artists. How are you seeing this scene different than the person standing next to me or the person who photographed it a week before you were there? You're visualizing yourself in that scene so you know what you want to get out of it. Then how do you capture that scene the way you want it captured so that you can convey what you're experiencing or what you want someone to experience when they're looking at that image? And then the third step in a creative photography process, the third detail, is how do you process that image so that your story that you're trying to tell visually comes through? It's really simple, 3 simple steps: visualize, capture, and process your story. I looked up creative photography terms. Creativity is about harnessing imagination and original ideas. Now, as a writer, I talk a lot when I teach other authors. I teach developmental editing and creative writing. Original ideas are very important. What do you see? What are you trying to capture? This is an image from the Atlanta Zoo. It's the first photograph I sold at a exhibit. It was sold at the Callan-Wald Center in Atlanta. They had a black and white exhibit, and I juried in 3 images, and this one sold. This was taken with a Tamron 150 to 600 lens at Barry Smith. Barry Smith rules, woo! Very calibrated and cleaned and made it perfect for me. I had never shot with this lens before. And I was out there with a girlfriend who knew how to shoot nature photography, and she was showing me how to use my Nikon D500 and my Tamron 150 to 600, and I'm a landscape photographer and I don't know what I'm doing, but I noticed this mother doing this one thing with her brand new baby in the Atlanta Zoo. She was carrying that baby around on her foot all over the place, and then he would scamper away and then he would come back. So everybody's photographing the gorillas and moving on. I stayed there for 45 minutes. I wanted to capture this moment, her eyes, his face, her holding him sitting on her foot, the light coming through them. It was perfect. And it took me forever to get the shot, and I swear to you, it took me forever to process it. But this was my idea. I saw this happening. and I stayed until I got the shot. So photography is about taking and processing images. So I had the original idea, I had to get the shot, and then I had to process it. So creative photography is harnessing your vision once you have it to capture and process original images that only you can create. Nobody else walked away from this session, and there were a bunch of us there from GMPA. Nobody else got this shot. I wanted to show the connection between a mother and a baby, and it's not a gorilla and a baby gorilla, it's a mother and a baby. And this is exactly what mothers experience every day, and I believe that's why it's sold. And the exhibit that this was shown in was not a nature exhibit. It was the Southeastern Photography Association. It was one of only a few nature images in the show, and it's one of the few that's sold because a mother who was bringing her daughter to ballet class saw it evidently and loved it. And that meant everything to me. So when you start talking about being artistic and having a vision, it can sound very highbrow. My artistic statement explains my work is utterly incomprehensible and therefore full of deep significance. We're not talking about comparing your work to somebody else and making it sound more important or making it sound better or making it sound more expensive. Creative photography is about visualizing and forming a mental image of something and then helping your reader understand what your vision, your viewer understand what your vision is. How do you interpret what you're seeing so the person that sees your image experiences that? This is an image of Minnehaha Falls. A lot of you have probably photographed, and it's one of the ones that we were talking about earlier about maybe visiting for fall color. This is fall, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I had just started using ultra wide angle lenses. David Akubian had talked about it at a workshop I went to. And I'm standing in the water at the base of the falls with an ultra wide on, aiming straight down at these rocks down here at the bottom. And I'm trying to capture all the color and all the light. And I know a lot of people now, when they photograph moving water, they want it to be completely smooth and they don't do as much light and bright. It's a lot of darker tones so that the white shows up better. And I've got an image like that in a minute. But to me, the best thing about this fall that I see every time I go there, and it's literally 5 minutes from my house, it's the beautiful trees around it and how the water comes down off these rocks. And this day there was gold everywhere. There was gold in the water. I wanted to see the texture of the water. I wanted to see the water coming down. I wanted you to hear it while you're looking at the image. I wanted to capture that moment. And everything I did about photographing and processing that image that you're seeing here that's been shown in galleries and bought in galleries up here was about getting you to the base of Minnehaha Falls and experiencing what I did that day. Now, this is also an image of Minnehaha that I went out and captured not too long ago because I wanted to have an opposing image to show. To me, it's not as well processed because I'm not as experienced as using darker tones and images. I'm not as experienced at making those highlights pop and all of that. So you can see that my heart, my vision, my voice is more in this image than this one. There's nothing wrong with this image, and it's a wider shot. It's also shot with a wide angle lens, and it's basically focusing on this rock here. So I got a little bit closer and I shot it at a different perspective. And you can see how in the corners it's bending up here. I could go back and practice this and get better at it. But to me, this isn't the shot that I'm going for at Minnehaha. This is me. When you look at a photograph of mine, you're going to see light and movement, and you're going to hopefully feel the light and the movement of the shot. To me, I could work with this and get better at this technique. And I know a lot of photographers I could learn from just watching. Travis Rhodes comes to mind. Is a GMPA photographer. He and David Akubian and Cecil Holmes can do this sort of thing and do it really, really well. I can't yet. I spent a lot of time learning how to do this. This is my voice. This is the story creatively that I'm trying to tell when I shoot water. Creative photography transforms your visual encounter with the world into a memorable image that conveys the story you want your viewer to experience. This is sunrise on the Foothills Parkway near Townsend, Tennessee, where GMPA does their Smokies weekend. We talked about that a little bit earlier too. It'll be the last weekend of October. I think it straddles October and November this year. And the sun was coming up off to the right, and it was going to be a brutally hot sunrise. There aren't a lot of clouds, but there was a lot of fog. And rather than stand with the crowd trying to get a little bit of sun as it crests the mountains, I noticed that there was fog in the trees and the sun was backlighting them coming through. And I went and photographed this image and was off to the side. And I was the only one doing it. To me, it was setting the trees on fire. It wasn't this orange. It wasn't this yellow. That's an overlay that I added in post. But again, this image has been shown pretty regularly up here and people get excited about it. It just feels like, you know, a choir is singing in the background and you're watching the sun set the trees on fire. I haven't adjusted the image in any way other than dealing with tones and color. So this to me is sunrise on the Foothills Parkway, not so much the sun cresting the mountains in the distance. This is my story. Your story is all about the details that you see and you process. What are your details? This is one of the more memorable trees in Cades Cove. And it's not the big one that everyone photographs, but it's a beautiful tree and it was a foggy morning and I loved it. And a bunch of us were out in this field. I actually was out here trying to use a wide angle lens to photograph all these flowers in the foreground. And I'll show you that picture in a minute. But I put a lens baby on, which is a soft focus art lens. When I got done photographing my flowers and getting them very sharp, I put a lens baby on and I did a series of photographs. And this is what I came away with. This is the first process version. This is a illustrated version of the same image. Nothing has changed except I've played with Circle Effects Pro and Topaz to add a little bit more highlights and then to texturize the image. To illustrate it, this is now in a book that I'm writing and hopefully I'll be working with a publisher to start illustrating my images for other people's children's books. So this is what I came away with as a good image. This image I absolutely love. This is the flower image that I started with, where I had a wide angle lens just jammed into these flowers here, probably at 15 millimeters, I would think. And then the middle ground is being, you know, jammed up together. And then we have that same tree in the background. And this is a bunch of us out in the field photographing the same flowers. So this is closer to what the morning looked like. Everybody's photographing the flowers. Everybody's photographing the tree. This is what I came away with. This is what I'm seeing as the detail that's important to me.
We had a question, Anna.
Yes.
Someone wanted to know which lens baby lens you used.
I typically use the Velvet series. I have them all, but I don't use them all anymore. I got crazy and started playing with all of them. I love the Velvets and I typically shoot with the Velvet 85. There's a 56, which is really good. The 85 gives you a little bit more width. And that's what I was using when I took this shot. And I actually had it's a manual aperture, so you have to manually open and close the aperture, and you really have to get used to shooting with it to get the light you want. I actually had, it can open up to, I think, a 1.6 aperture. I had this closed down pretty tight, so it was softening the edges and adding a little bit of glow. The best thing about the lens babies to me is it makes the image glow. It just eats all the light and gives you this great glow, even when it's pretty sharp. So for a lens baby image, it's pretty sharp, but I love the Velvets because they give you more control over what you're doing. And it's not quite as, you don't have to have special tools. It's a regular lens, except it's a manual exposure. I mean, a manual focus and a manual aperture. And they just launched an ultra wide. I think they have a 25 millimeter that they just opened in the Velvet, which I'm dying to have, but I don't need, so I'm buying other things right now. Any other questions before we go on? So visualizing, this is a butterfly in a field up here off the Soquel River. Somebody has a field of flowers every year, this color, and there are always butterflies. And this is the first time I was able to use a relatively long lens to capture a butterfly on it. And I had probably been trying for years, developing my skills. So don't get me wrong, you've got to get skilled enough at your gear and your technique to be able to capture the images you want once you decide what you want. But the thing about this image that I love is all these soft flowers in the background. This is all straight out of the lens. I'm using a pretty wide open aperture, even though I'm trying to get all the detail on this butterfly I can. So when I'm shooting flowers and butterflies and dragonflies and things like that, I'm very, very aware of what's going on in my background. I do want to be as sharp as possible. So I want to use as many megapixels in my camera as possible so I can crop. But I also want to make sure that my background is looking the way I want it. And this was 2 years ago, maybe 3. I was thrilled when I got the shot. I had been trying a long time to get this image that I wanted. All that experience was about recognizing where I was, going back over and over again to the same place at the same time of year, and then getting super excited about learning how to do this so that I could then take that skill and continue working with the same subject. This is a butterfly at the Dahlonega Butterfly Farm, I believe, just a few weeks ago on a GMPA trip. So this is where I progressed in a couple of years. This is with a macro lens shooting in their butterfly building. But again, we've got the soft flowers in the background. I'm shooting up into the light that's being diffused through the back. And the only thing that's sharp is this butterfly's eye, the one antenna, and the wing. How often do you practice your vision? It's kind of the same vision as this, but you see how this looks muted and the tones aren't quite as bright. And it was great for the time, but I'm thrilled that this is what I can do now with a macro. And this is after years of practicing. What is my background going to look like? How do I get what I want in the foreground, but get what I want in the background? And then I did go to Cades Cove not too long ago, and I was photographing the butterflies on the flowers in the fields there. And this is what I was able to do with a long lens 2 or 3 years after that very first image. So my technique has gotten better. But again, the group that I was shooting with, what I was aware of was the green and the soft backgrounds and having nothing there distracting me from the butterfly that I was trying to photograph when somebody actually looked at the image. And this is what I came away with versus what other people came away with on the same shot, where the butterfly and the flowers were tack sharp, but there was all this distraction in the background. When I'm shooting, I want you to see this soft, glowing, healing background. So I practice shooting that way. How do you see, feel, and engage with your environment and the moment that you're trying to capture? These are flamingos at the Atlanta Zoo. Again, I practice at the zoo back before COVID. It's a little bit harder now because of all the social distancing, but I love taking my camera to the zoo and trying to find something interesting to do. These flamingos are all huddled together at the very front. The little area that they're in is distracting, and there's a lot of going on, a lot of things you don't want in your image. The thing that fascinates me are the curves of these necks. This image has a lot of processing. I've intentionally added an art processing technique to it so that it's got this soft, muted, glowy, almost high key process to it. But this is a full image. It's only been cropped to a square. There wasn't a whole lot done to it. Another Calvin and Hobbes. Sometimes people should just look at things and think about things without doing things. This is what the flamingos look like. That's the same image. This is what they look like straight out of the camera. Lots of noise, lots of busyness, feathers all over the place, not terribly pretty. But I saw the curves of these necks. I saw the angle. Even this bird back here in the background fascinates me. I love their necks. I will go back and try and capture the essence of how do I show people what it looks like to look at flamingos to me? How can I do that better the next time? Every time I experience it. So how creatively do you share your story with the viewer? This was the original image, but I saw this piece here. This is what I ended up printing, and it again has been in a gallery and sold there. So when you're connecting to your environment, you hear about pattern and texture and symmetry and depth and lines and all of these things as you're looking at how are you going to capture that scene, how are you going to compose your image. But you also want to connect with what is most interesting to you in the image. You're not just photographing the flamingos in the Atlanta Zoo. You're photographing what you find most fascinating about the flamingos. You're photographing the things about them that maybe other people don't see. The texture of the feathers, the curves of their necks, the starkness of the black playing against all that lighter color, all of the different shapes that you can photograph. And I'm zooming in with a long lens. I'm not taking a wide picture and then cropping. I'm trying to get these shots with my camera. I'm connecting with my world and I'm telling a story. This is an albino peacock at the zoo on the same trip. And these to me look like fireworks. So not only did I photograph the peacock, but I'm trying to catch its feathers. We're shooting through a chain link fence. It's almost impossible to get the shot, but I stayed there for about half an hour and played with the feathers, knowing I wanted this to be black and white. When I got it home, engage the viewer in what you discover. First of all, you need to be open to discovering something new, even if you're looking at something you've seen time and time again. You're connecting. When you look at old cars, do you see a face? Do you see a bouquet? Do you see stained glass? These are all shot at Old Car City that I know North Georgia, the Camera Club has been to, yes?
Yes.
To me, when I go there, and I've done a lot of more recent work, these are older images. When I go there, I'm looking up close. I'm looking at these little cameos that I can capture and something different that I've never seen before. I'm always on the lookout. I want to take my reader on a creative journey. My viewer on a creative journey. This is a car on the side of the road up here, I think in Otto, North Carolina, just north of Raven County. Exploring my discovery from its scruffy little chin. To me, this car looked like a face. It's got a little chin and a mouth and a nose. And then it's got a little freckled head up here where the paint is peeling. This is again with an ultra wide. I think this was a 15mm Tamron, I think a 15-30. And I'm on a tripod, and this is right after David Akubian said at a workshop, just jam that lens in there. The lens is probably right on this fender. And I'm leaning over the car, trying to capture as much of the car as I possibly can while the focus of the image is on this face. And to me, it looks like, you know, she's got a little lipsticked mouth and this is her nose. I don't know if you see that, but I do. And because I've spent so much time doing this, this is now a gallery of images I have up in Soakley Artworks in Clarksville. And these are all from Old Car City. Some of them are older, some of them are newer. I focus on the chrome, and I know there's several people on the North Georgia page that I've seen post images like this. This is what fascinates me. These are all done in metal, and I love the colors more than anything else. This guy has this one hung upside down. It drives me crazy every time I see it. As soon as I saw this image, I went in and fixed it because he sent me this on his phone. I'm like, it's upside down. But I love it. This is what I see. Everybody wants perfect cars, you know, and they like the classics that have been restored. I love the old stuff. I absolutely love it. And I didn't know this is in the Georgia Mount Laurel, this September issue. This is one gallery up here that has an old car that I've made folk art from. I've put them on doors. And this is another ad that they're doing for me for Soakley Artwork. So I didn't even know this was happening. If you keep being as artistic as you can, and not necessarily my version of artistic, which is you don't see the car, you're just seeing the emblems and what I love about the chrome and the peeling paint, but what is it that you love most? And if you keep doing it and putting it out there and people keep responding to it, there's no limit to where it can take you. People respond to art when it makes them feel something. So if you want them to respond to your photography in any other way, then that's a great picture of a car. Then how can you convey what you're feeling when you're so fascinated about photographing that car? If people sat outside and looked up at the stars each night, I'll bet they'd live a lot differently. Just go outside and connect and capture and work scenes creatively. These are at Gibbs Gardens, which we're seeing a lot of pictures of right now because the water lilies are still there and then the leaves are about to change. This is a fantastic time of the year to be at Gibbs. You can use polarizers on your lenses, and a lot of people do, and I do at times. But I like the reflections. I love abstract reflections of landscapes in moving water. So I tend to shoot a lot where I'm capturing something like this lily pad and this frog, but I'm also capturing the trees in the sky and the leaves that are going on around them. So I probably spent 45 minutes with again, my Tamron 150-600. And I'm photographing, I see this frog and I'm trying to catch him in as many different angles so I can get as many different types of reflections around these two water lilies that are also kind of hanging out next to him. And I just keep playing with it creatively until there's nothing left for me to discover in the scene, or is there? And this is the image I ultimately ended up printing and selling. These are all great, but this is the thing that spoke to me because I love the play of this purple. These are the irises or whatever that's growing on the side. Same frog, same lily pad, he hasn't moved. I just kept moving till I got this image. Create with your feet. You're capturing things by moving around and trying to connect with your environment in a way that's different. I first photographed this image, which is similar to the first ones, but I noticed these purple flowers up here and I said, what if I walked around to the other side of this pond and managed to line up the frog with the purple flowers? And that's how I got this. I stopped worrying about the water lilies. I think this is fantastic. It looks like a painting to me. And really, I haven't really done much with this image at all, but working with tone and color. Everything else is pretty much straight out of the camera. All of this is what happens when you see landscapes reflected in water. I do the same thing with my extreme macro photography. This is what's going into Emory and what's going into galleries up here. These are shot with a old Tamron 180 millimeter manual focus lens. And I'm doing a series where I'm following the stems of flowers into the petals and everything is backlit. This is something I've discovered I love to do and my viewers love to see. So every time I'm photographing larger flowers, this is a tulip, this is a poppy, and this is a clematis. I'm looking for ways to photograph these flowers with the light, natural light, sunlight coming in from the face of the flower. I'm shooting from behind and I'm trying to find creative ways and a kind of Georgia O'Keeffe homage for these stems to be going into these flowers so they kind of become their own canvas. You can see the little stamens or whatever these are on the backside of the poppy. You can see how the color blends. And to me, this clematis looks almost Art Deco. The angles and lining them up, and I could spend an hour photographing a flower. It drives my husband insane. But it's moving around and moving my lens around and knowing what a macro lens can do and which lens to use. I wouldn't use a lens baby to do this because I want it sharp. But I don't care that the stem's not sharp. I find the selective focus area that absolutely has to be sharp, and then I let the rest go. And then I use color and tone and processing to get the images to look the way I want to once I have them home. But most all of these flowers you see here, this is full frame. There's very little cropping involved. Same thing with wildlife. This is a family of bears. I was able to photograph in Cades Cove in the spring. And we went in with a guide and we walked around, and a friend of mine and I thought we found where this family was sleeping at night. And I went back in the next morning at dawn. And I was a safe distance away with my very long lens, but they got used to me being there as they woke up. And I spent 2 hours very quietly, very selectively moving around and photographing this family. And if I hadn't spent years learning how to use my gear to do this, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But while I'm standing there, I'm thinking this would be an amazing book. This would be an absolutely amazing story to tell, to help somebody else connect with this family. Look at these faces. I mean, this was the best moment of my photography life, to be in this place at this time with the skills to take these images and to be able to see in my mind what it might look like. This is from a different day, and this is from a different day. The rest of these are all the same family. And this is the book that I've created, and I'm pitching it to the Smoky Mountains gift shop, and this up in the park, the Great Smoky Mountains Park. I'm hoping they might pick it up, but it's already selling here locally and online. But to be able to tell this story of this family, that's creativity, but it wouldn't work if people didn't look at the images and connect to them and feel, what it's like to be in the woods with this family in the morning. I loved it. And so that's a not as creative way of using your images and finding a creative outlet for them later. If there's more to life than this, then I don't know what it is. You're connecting with the moment, you're creating and composing your image, you're capturing it as experimentally as you possibly can, either with gear or with moving your feet. And then when you're processing, you're conveying your story by the choices you make in processing. This is a few weeks ago when the cherries were ripe in Cades Cove. This is the original processing for this image, this mother and baby that were up in a tree. I I took the plunge and bought a used Nikon 500mm PF lens, the one that's smaller that I can actually handle better. And it's a revelation what it can do. This is the image that I ended up illustrating for use later, and also to put in galleries. People seem to be responding to wildlife better if there's a little bit of softness to it. So this is the original image. This is probably what I'll print. And to me, it just adds a little bit of and a more emotion to the moment. Even though it's not as true a photograph, people seem to connect with it better. So this is probably what I'll print to put up in a gallery up here. This is the original image, by the way, full frame. I was able to move up a ridge line, so I'm kind of shooting straight at these animals. And you can see she had an ear tag. I had to rebuild that ear, but you can also see the mountains behind it and just a little bit of a crop. That's straight out of the camera. These bears were absolutely amazing. I kind of got bear drunk. This little baby up here on the right, he's getting ready to lick a cherry off this leaf. It's unbelievable. But moving around and learning how to get the right vantage point and learning to look at my background and trying to get the leaves. And I don't care that the leaves are half obscuring the bears. I'm trying to tell a story here. This is a really difficult image because I'm shooting up into the light, but I wanted to get a picture of a bear climbing a tree. I wanted to see this baby reaching for cherries. So this is more of a straight photograph, but the look on his face, the way he's holding the lens, his little fur is wet. I think I'm conveying something there, but this image here of this bear, this is a, sorry, that's my grandmother's clock in the background, my apologies. This is a abstract version of this image. So this is the original processing, and then I'm creating a series of abstract prints for people that want a more neutral palette. I want people to be bringing these images into their homes, and there's a lot of interest in bears up here. This is after I processed it, and then I impose a color palette on it, and I go monochromatic, and then I have a way in Topaz where I can create this kind of abstract look, but it works because of all the leaves, because of all the detail in these images. I'm not so worried about just getting the bear. I'm trying to get the environment around the bear, and I'm trying to get a semi-monochromatic palette here. It's green and red and black and white, and that's about it. Then I can impose a color palette on it, and then I can work with it and abstract it. So the fact that I'm shooting wider shots and I'm not just trying to get a perfect image of the bear allows me to do this sort of artistic processing if I choose to. This is a horse out in Wyoming at a dude ranch that I stayed at. David Akubian and Cecil Holmes do a fantastic trip out to the Tetons. And the ranch run the horses and let you take pictures of them. So once I started processing in an abstract way with the bears, I thought maybe I could do the same thing with horses. And these are some samples. I actually have them printed, and one's in my home now. And somebody's already wanting to buy this particular image for somebody. Her ex-husband loves horses. Once you've figured out a way to creatively process things, you can play with it, and it takes days sometimes to figure out exactly what I'm looking for. This will be a 4-panel quad trick where I'm doing 4 panels probably of a medal that somebody can hang in their house. I'm also, like I said, I'm combining my writing with my photography. This is an image from Gibbs that I took. It's a 5 image stack with a lens baby with a different aperture each time. This is a bluebird in my neighborhood, and I'm writing for the Georgia Mountain Laurel here. This is one of my favorite. Calvin and Hobbes, did you ever wonder if the person in the puddle is real or if you're just a reflection of him? Like I said, and I don't want to go on, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'm fascinated by water. I'm fascinated by light. I'm fascinated by telling stories. In this image, this is just walking through the woods up here. And there was a puddle on the ground, and I'd seen a lot of photographers photograph things that were going on around them in a puddle. And I just sat there in the dirt trying to get close enough to get this image. This is another one from Gibbs. Everybody's familiar with the Monet Bridge. And these are what the maples are going to look like in a few weeks. I can't recommend strongly enough getting to Gibbs Gardens in October, late September. It's going to be fantastic. This is before it got too cold because the water lilies are still there. And I'm happy to meet people there. I'm sure I've met some of you there. I didn't want to get this wide angle lens of the scene. I wanted to, again, much like this one, get people to start looking down in the water. This is an image of this tree reflected in this water. You don't see the tree up here. You don't see the bridge. You hopefully are seeing the lightest part of the image is down here. And this is a lot of processing. This is a very successful image for me. I would probably never print it and sell it, but what I want you to think about the next time you're at Gibbs Gardens is, what does it look like in the water? Not just the water lily, not just the trees. I would love for somebody who sees this to actually be looking in the water the next time they're there. I haven't talked a lot about gear. I do have a lot of gear, but I am finding myself using less and less gear. I've kind of honed down to exactly what is most important to me. And you don't need a lot of pricey gear. I started photographing with a Nikon 7100, which still had automated settings on it. When I first started using my Nikon, I didn't understand proper exposure. I didn't really understand aperture and shutter speed and ISO and white balance. So I was hacking these automated settings to get what I wanted, to get things like this. This is an image of off the Outer Banks of the waves coming in order to slow this down. You know, I was hacking settings on the back of my camera. I didn't know how to slow. This is on a very cloudy morning. I didn't know how to slow the water down and get this image myself, but I was able to use the camera because I really wanted to see all the texture. Very little sky. I wanted you to hear the ocean as it was coming in. When you get around any kind of water, you could listen, react, engage, and discover in a unique way that only you will do. You guys can all go to the water together and come away with 20 or 30 different approaches to how to photograph it, because each of you are going to be telling your own story. Practice and quality of tools and processing skills helps a lot. I don't want to discourage anybody from getting the best gear they can afford and learning how to use their tools and process their images as successfully as possible. But the most important thing about being a storyteller is learning how to see the world as an artist when you pick up your camera. And then learning how to convey that story with your lens choice and your aperture choice and your shutter speed choice and even your camera choice. I use one camera for wildlife and another one for landscape typically. And sometimes I use my wildlife lens and my wildlife camera to do landscape things now. But making those choices is the artistic approach to doing what you're doing. It's not about the gear, it's about how you're using whatever it is you have. When I'm going to be taking some people out during the Smokies weekend that GMPA is doing, to go out to Tremont and outside of Townsend on the way to Cades Cove, and also go to the Y. And we're going to do creative water photography and then just straight water photography. And it's one of my favorite things to do. And I'm going to be encouraging everybody with whatever gear they have to be playing with the moment and trying different things and asking a lot of questions, and let's get in there and let's get in the water and let's figure out what you can do. So artists encounter the world creatively. They transform what they experience into a medium that shares their vision. So the question is, what is your detail? It's all in the details, but what's your vision? What's your voice as an artist? What story are you trying to tell the next time you go out to shoot? And even if you only spend a few minutes thinking about this, each time you go out, it'll become part of your process. In addition to worrying about your memory cards and worrying about your batteries and worrying about your lenses and worrying about your backpack and your tripod and not dumping all your gear in the waterfall and all of that, take a few minutes when you get to the scene, and before you put your tripod together or put your camera together, just stand there and think about what's going on around you. What do you want to capture? How can you do it differently than the last time you were there? Your journey is your greatest tool, and going back to experience the same journeys over and over again, and then always looking for a new experience, is the greatest skill set and the greatest tool you'll ever have in being more creative with your photography. So that's kind of it. That's all I have. I'm happy to go back through any of it or answer any questions anybody has. And like I said earlier, I would be happy to come back and talk a little bit more about processing, because I know, the more I get into it, the more I realize I don't know. And I'm constantly on YouTube, or I'm working with different people that do online training, trying to figure out something specifically I need to do that I don't know how to do yet. I'm happy to share any of those tips and tricks I can.
Got any questions?
So, the flamingos in the beginning that you made into a soft process, which was.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing and then I can go back out to my PowerPoint and get us to wherever we want to go. So go ahead.
Well, in that flamingo in the beginning, you had more the reality based and then you had a softer version.
Yep.
Can you just give a super brief synopsis how you made it processing wise?
All right, I'm trying to get back to Zoom now. Here we go. All right, I think I found the right slide. We're talking about this one.
Yes.
All right, I'm not, well, let's see if I can share from current slide. From current slide. All right, that didn't work. All right, can you guys see the slideshow as I'm going back through it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just gonna get back this way. I thought I was being nifty. This is the one we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, to do something like this, I think my first step was to get the composition the way I wanted it. I needed to get rid of all the distractions. So I tried to figure out on this slide on the left, how much of these necks and bodies did I need to keep in order to convey the fact that it's the curve of these necks and the texture of these feathers that's so important to me. So I probably cropped it first. I can, if we did a different webinar or we did more of a workshop, I could actually step you through the process. I've done that before. Then if you'll notice the image on the right, we've lost a lot of these deeper tones in the colors and the feathers. There's still a deeper tone, but I've desaturated those. So that was probably my next step. And then this is also, before I added, there is a vignette added onto this. And what I've done in Color Effects Pro, which is DxO now, you can add a vignette by using color, but you can also add a kind of fog sort of vignette. And that's what I've done here. The fog or mist adds a little bit of light. And then I picked up a color in one of these flamingos and I actually created a vignette in a specific color. So it's got kind of a pink tone. And that softness is what's kind of helping concentrate your focus here on these necks right in the middle. And the other thing I've done, and I believe GMPA, Georgia Nature Photographers, has a webinar coming up with Lisa Langle, who talks about doing high key processing. I also, before I added the vignette, I definitely did some high key processing here where I'm intentionally blowing out highlights and desaturating color even more by using tone. And there are a lot of ways to do that. And I would recommend exploring using the curves in Photoshop or Lightroom, because when you use curves, you're just adjusting tone. You're not adjusting color and you're not adjusting light. So it's a non-destructive adjustment. You're not changing anything but how the tones are conveyed in the image. So I would think that's what I did here, but there's definitely some high key and then a vignette added, and I definitely desaturated some of the colors. But again, where I wanted your eye to go was where it was brightest in this image, which is right in the middle, and the curve of this neck in the middle. The flamingo itself, that little head right here in the center, is the sharpest part of the image. I didn't care how soft the rest went. So I just started playing with it until I got the effect that I liked. The other thing that I do in processing, especially for an image like this, is I'm in Photoshop, I'm not in Lightroom. I'll start in Lightroom, but then I'll move over into Photoshop, and I use layers a lot so that I can back out of changes that I've made. But also I will, about a third of the way into processing something complicated like this, I will save a copy of the image, and then I will merge it all down to a single background layer again and move on from there. But that again allows me to back up, because as you merge layers, you're not going to be able to step back in and see what you did. I can go back into this image and tell you from the series of images that it took me to create this print, I can recreate it with another print from the same shoot, because I can actually go back through my process and see what I did. A lot of the creative processing that I'm doing, I am just exploring and I'm experimenting and I'm using what I know then and I'm learning as I go, and I will maybe come back and change something later. So I'm always trying to keep a paper trail that I can go back and readjust. So if we were to use this in a workshop format where we're actually looking at processing, I could step you through exactly what I did. And this was several years ago, pre-COVID. So my processing skills weren't great. I had seen high key, I had seen some of this done, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I love this. It took me a while. I would probably do it a different way today. I know techniques that wouldn't take as long today to achieve what I did here. This was a lot of processing for me at the time. My skills have accelerated from there. But I loved the final result. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. And I have other images from that day that I think I showed you that I'm equally happy with, but I processed them very differently. These, I wanted the background to go black, and I really wanted to just show the contrast and the texture. Still, I'm looking at the shape of the necks. That's the focus on all the shots, but I really want you to see the feathers and the textures and the play of the colors. And this is still a little high key in a way, but you have these deep saturated reds in this one that you don't have in these, where I was intentionally kind of doing this soft pink. Somebody bought a picture of this for their daughter's nursery. She thought it was beautiful, you know, a soft pink for a little girl's nursery. They would never do that for this. Looks almost blood red. The flamingo looks like it's bleeding, but I think it's cool. So did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And again, I'm not trying to say that everybody has to be super artsy fartsy. It's my thing. I love doing it. I've said recently, and it maybe was in my bio, I feel like I've been writing novel length fiction for almost 20 years now. And I write short articles for periodicals, but with my photography, I feel like I found my poetry. I want to convey in a single image with no words what it might take me 300,000 words to say in a book, or 1,500 words to say in an article, or you know, however many words it takes to write a children's book. I want you to be able to look at these images and see what I'm trying to say when I'm photographing them. And that's what makes it art. It's not overly processed. It doesn't have to be a lot of Photoshop. It's how can you take a picture of that mountain, that waterfall, that car, that building, that person a little bit differently, because you're taking the image and it's saying something about how you're looking at what you're photographing. And it's uniquely your image because of that. Somebody standing right next to you would not take the same picture because you're coming at it from a little bit different vision and voice and creativity, regardless of how you process it or what lens you're using. So, any other questions? Complete silence. Exactly what the speaker wants.
We're a shy group, and then eventually people start to speak up.
All right, I'll break the silence for you.
Okay.
I appreciate what you say about seeing the image, seeing your final result before you take the picture.
Uh-huh.
That's the part that's hardest for me. You mentioned Travis earlier. We've gone shooting before where we were standing right next to each other, shooting the same thing, and his image is completely different than mine.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I admire Travis, and I didn't realize he was as creative as he was until we started photographing together, because the first time I met him, he was doing a workshop for my GMPA chapter about ultra technical focus stacking. You know, he was trying to take pictures of things and getting everything precisely sharp all the way through. And his architect side was coming out. And I thought, wow, this is a really technical guy. And then I started seeing some of his photography, and he's also incredibly creative. His photographs are beautiful and technical at sometimes, but sometimes they're not. He does beautiful macro photography. He's very creative. To me, I think the more you photograph, either the same scene more than once, and Travis is one of those photographers that keeps going back to the same places over and over again, and he's challenging himself to shoot the same things, but to get something more out of it, or it's a different time of day. It's a different time of the year. The water is different. The leaves are different. He keeps going back. The more you practice, the more you shoot, and the more you think about what you're doing before you photograph, the more comfortable you'll get with approaching a scene and looking at it and thinking about it before you get any gear out. I can't tell you the number of people that I've learned from that say they don't set up their tripod until they get to the scene and they look around. They don't even get their camera out of their bag until they walk around. Because once you have that tripod set and you're putting your camera on top of it, then you're looking at a particular field of I'm going to say the wrong word here. A plane. You're looking at a particular plane that you're photographing on. It would be different if you were lower. It would be different if you were higher. What if you got closer? What if you got further back? So once you start getting your gear out, the creativity starts to kind of be limited by the camera you chose and the lens you chose and the tripod angle that you chose. So if you, and I have people at GMPA that do landscapes and wildlife, and I have these grown men now rolling around on the ground photographing flowers from the backside because they've seen me do it enough. They've bought lens babies and they're interested in getting underneath the wildflowers and photographing them with the light coming in from behind them. So as you go to these scenes, talk to the people around you. What are you seeing? What's your process? How are you thinking about setting up? Look at their images and say, hey, would you mind showing me how you did that? I know Travis wouldn't mind. I absolutely wouldn't mind. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about how I do things. And if you see someone at Gibbs Gardens or at a waterfall or at a car show and they're doing something, if you strike up a conversation, they're going to talk to you about what they're doing. And I guess that would be my best advice, is always be thinking differently, looking at it differently, and talking to people about how they're making the choices they're making. It's not just walk up to a scene and take a photograph and walk away. That's great, but it's limiting. So if you want to take your photography further or in a different direction or get experimental, then you need to start playing around and hanging out with people that are doing things differently than you do. I'm the artistic wingnut at GMPA. Everybody knows that I'm always doing something different. You know, they're all photographing the waterfall, I'm photographing the reflection at the base. I mean, that's just who I am. And I get to help a lot of people out that way. So it makes me happy.
I think there's a certain, how you say, genetic component to it too, because Travis got a college scholarship for his artwork.
Yeah, and David Akubian has a master's in fine art. I don't know how many people know he actually has an MFA. He's one of the few actual credentialed artists running around in some of the groups that I go out with. I have a honors degree from Georgia Tech in computer science, industrial management, and technical communications. I'm a math and science geek. And I've been a professional artist for going on 20 years now, because when my son started school, he was going to need some help navigating that. And I gave up my corporate career and stayed home and started exercising the creative side of my brain. I think the thing I would say to those of you who think you're not creative, you're more technical, some of the most creative people I know, like Travis and David, are also the most technical people I know. You're talking about two sides of the same coin. It's very analytical to be good creatively, because you have to be able to break process down. You have to be able to understand your tools and be skilled at them, while at the same time being able to let all that go and just be creative. Does everybody know the song "Don't Worry, Be Happy"? This obnoxious song from long, long ago. I'm showing my age. Bobby McFerrin, I think, was the artist.
Yep.
I got to see him at a show at Chastain Park, and he was playing acoustic everything. He's a Grammy Award-winning improvisational artist. He hates that song because that's what everybody knows him for, but he actually can play any instrument and play with any artist on any stage at any time. And he was talking about how hard it was to be an improvisationist, because you actually have to, and this is the thing I talk about a lot in both writing workshops and photography, you've got to trust your skills, you got to trust your technique, you know, all the things you know about your camera, your lens. You also have to trust your experience. And then you have to be able to let all of that go and just play. being an improvisationist as a musician is about playing your instrument. Being improvisational about your camera is playing your instrument. You got to be able to let all the technique and all the technicality of it go. Trust that you'll be able to do what you need to do, and then just play. You're in nature. You love it. You want to share it with other people. That's why you do what you do. So what do you want to do with it today? How do you want to play today? And once it becomes this playful thing, then it all starts to come together and you get into it. And that's why, you know, I say I could spend an hour photographing the same flower. I don't care. I'm having fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's play. But I'm very good at it because I can also turn on the technical side. So those of you who think I'm very, very technical, I'm not very creative, I'm going to call bullshit and say, I bet you're very creative. That's just a muscle that you haven't exercised as much. So you got to put all the technical stuff aside sometimes, not worry about getting the perfect shot or the sharpest image or the best shot, and you just need to play and risk not getting any good shots today because today I'm just going to play. That would be my best advice.
Unfortunately, my photography gets in the way of my golf game.
I know. It's hard. And you know, I'm very lucky that I'm at a point where I live where I do now because of where it is, and I can play a lot. This is what I hope to be doing for the rest of my life. If I can make this what I do, then I'm a happy girl. It does take a lot of practice. It takes a lot of shots and a lot of getting it wrong and a lot of processing it the wrong way and getting frustrated and then figuring something else out. It's very, to me, the processing is almost most of the work. It's learning how, I explained this to somebody who was trying to learn how to use lens babies. You have to know what you want that image to look like on the back of your camera. This is what I want it to look like because I know if I can get it to this point, I can take it home and process it and get what I want out of it. You have to start learning how you want something to look in camera so that you know you can go home and process it and get what you want out of it. And that's a skill set. You never know until you get it home what you actually have. And learning what to look for and what to do in your camera so you're relatively certain you've got the shot is a big part of the battle. And then processing becomes a huge piece of it too. And then there's golf, which is very distracting. And for me, it's tennis, and it's recently become pickleball. It's this heinous thing, perversion of tennis and volleyball and paddleball. And now I'm obsessed with that too. So it does take up a lot of time.
So Anna, this is Bill Atherley. I just wanted to make a comment. Your growth in the butterflies really was appealing to me. And I happened to be on that same trip with you to Dahlonega. And my pictures aren't even close to what you did, but seeing what you did and looking at your background and the way you incorporated that really gives me something to strive for. So it's really a great learning experience tonight. So thank you.
Well, and I would thank you. And that means a lot. And I got that reaction because Jenny Burdett, who led that group for GNP, I'm trying to get to that image from Dahlonega. I know it's in here somewhere. Jenny's one of the best photographers. I know she's the one that was standing next to me when I, all right, I'll get here, I swear. There we go. I'm gonna get back here and then I'm gonna share the screen. Here we go. She was the one that was standing next to me when I photographed those gorillas that I showed at the beginning of the slideshow, saying, no, Anna, this is how you hold it. No, this is how you set up the lens. This is how you shoot wildlife, because I had no clue. And I'm trying to get her into lens babies and flowers and macro photography, which is very frustrating for her. So we're kind of helping each other out. This shot is probably the culmination of trying to photograph butterflies for the last 5 years. Not just the butterflies, but the flowers too. And it's understanding, this is a macro lens. I had it's a autofocus Nikon 60mm macro. That I carried a bunch of lenses with me that day, but once I got in there, that was my decision. That was the lens I needed to be shooting with in that very close building with a lot of people, and the butterflies, there weren't a lot of them, and a lot of the vegetation was busy and messy, and I was in this butterfly space. I was shooting with a higher ISO than I probably should have been, so my shutter speed could be as fast as it could be, and I was just looking for I knew where these flowers were in the background. This is all light coming through the diffused ceiling of the butterfly house. I saw what it was doing to this leaf. All of this is pretty much out of the camera, except I played with the colors a little bit. I wanted that eye sharp. I wanted the curl of this piece in the front. I wanted as much in this diagonal plane sharp as possible, and I let the rest go. But I knew that from shooting butterflies for years, and I was shooting with a long lens, my 500 millimeter outside, and I got a great shot of a clear winged butterfly moth or hummingbird moth that I'd never gotten before. But inside, this was mostly lens choice. It wasn't a lens baby because I needed autofocus. It wasn't a wider angle lens because I needed to get in close. It wasn't a telephoto lens because I needed as much light as I possibly could for as fast a shutter speed as I could possibly get. And then it's looking through the camera and trying to line up elements to get what you're looking for. And my aperture was wide open. A lot of people shooting butterflies care that everything is super sharp. I'm not one of those people. This is what I see when I look at a butterfly. When I got her home, this is the first image I processed, and I probably only processed a handful from that day because it was really tough shooting conditions in that house. She looks like she's a rock star. She's got a microphone and she's getting ready to sing. I mean, she's on the stage. Her wings are spread. These are the fireworks going off behind her. She's Katy Perry getting ready to sing a song. I just thought she was amazing. I didn't know I had that. I was doing my thing. I've worked with butterflies for a long time, and I've worked with flowers for a long time, and I've worked with ultra soft macro photography for a long time. I was hoping for the best. I squealed when I saw this when I got home. I'm like, yay! I got one because I was prepared to come home that day and really not have a whole lot because it was really tough shooting in that building, and I was thrilled. So it means a lot, Bill, that that captured your eye. There's still some things I could clean up. Before I printed it, I would clean this green up here. I would get this green out here, but I think I would keep this stem. I think it's important, but there are a few things I would clean up, but there's not a whole lot about this that I don't like. And it's mostly straight out of the camera.
But it does show your growth and what's something I can strive for.
Yeah.
So I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
The background comment was especially pertinent for me. So thank you.
Yeah, always looking at your background elements when you're doing things like flowers, anything, any kind of wildlife. You really want to be thinking about, and you can look at the back of your camera. Is it soft? Is it busy? Can I get it? Can I get down low or get down high or back up a little bit more to get the bear with the mountain behind it, or get the butterfly with just green behind it? So I'm not getting a lot of stems. I'm not getting a lot of distracting elements. That's what makes these look so good. And again, I could go back and reprocess this, but I'm very proud of this image. I was so proud of it when I got it. It took a lot to get there, but yeah, looking at the progression of what I can do now was what I hope to share with you guys tonight. Any other questions or comments? And if there's interest in talking more about processing, I don't know if that's something that the club really likes to do. I'm happy to kind of talk strategy about that. Maybe do that down the road, or shooting out in the field one day.
I think definitely, Timmy, I know will watch the video. She's a high school teacher, and her students said, please come watch the football game tonight. So she texted me about 10 minutes before the meeting. So I know she's going to be watching and knows that we're talking about her because she's watching it. But she'll contact you just like she's going to be contacting Mike Robertson. He was our speaker last month. And so we may be able to finish out the year with a couple of good workshops, or even if it's into next year. So.
Yeah, or whenever. And again, I know there's some really, really talented photographers in this group, and every group I've spoken to, I am very comfortable saying I may be the least experienced person in the room. But I hit the ground running being creative with my photography because that's just kind of how I was looking at it from the start. So this has kind of become my little niche, talking about how to be artsy fartsy with your photography or look at your world in a different way. So don't get me wrong, you guys are fantastic, and I'm happy to share whatever my skill set might complement yours. And I'll probably learn, if we start talking processing, I'm sure I'll learn a lot from you too, because there are about 100 different ways to do everything. in Lightroom and Photoshop and all these other tools.
Definitely. I'm always watching. I don't get my editing done because I'm busy watching stuff on YouTube. So
Well,
I
and
have new tricks. Yeah.
I'll buy an online course and get 15 minutes in it and get so excited about something they're showing me. I'll go off and play with that for a while and I'll never get back to watching the rest of it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
exactly the same way.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We all enjoyed it. I don't know if you saw some of the comments that were coming through, but they were all great.
Well, I really
And,
appreciate you guys having me.
Thank
So we're
you.
going to go ahead and do our challenge, and you're welcome to stay and watch our photo challenge and vote on it.
Okay, I'm gonna pause my video for just a minute, go check on my cats, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
All right,
And
thanks,
that will
guys. Thanks
go.
for having me.
Thank you.
And I will figure out how to share my screen again. All right. I think this is the right one. There we go. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do our photo challenge. These were all the themes this year. And for September, we're doing silhouette, and we had 14 entries this month. So briefly, the rules, 1 image per person. The image must be less than 2 years old. No composites, single image file only. You must be a paid member. You must be attending the Zoom meeting, but you are allowed to miss 1 meeting per year and still enter your image. And new this year, the photographer of the year is going to be awarded $100. For your voting, you're going to vote by number, the image number. You're going to vote for first, second, and third place. You can vote for 3 different images. Don't vote for the same photo multiple times. We're only going to count it once. And we always say, when you're voting, think about whether or not it fits the theme. We award 5 points for first place, 4 points for second place, 3 points for third, and so on. At the end of the year, we add up the points, and that's how we come up with the photographer of the year. I can tell you right now, it's running neck and neck. I think we have a tie or maybe 1 point separating the top 2 or 3 people, so it's really close. When we're done, you're going to email your votes to vote@ngaphoto.club, not .com, but vote@ngaphoto.club. And so we'll get started and we'll go through this a couple of times. So just curiosity, are you able to see the entire image, or are people showing up in the corner of your picture?
I can see
Okay.
the entire image.
Entire
Yeah, my
image.
screen.
But people
my
are showing
screen.
up on the side.
Okay, let's see if I can move this over a little bit. That's about as far as it'll let me. Oh, now you're on the
If you go to
bottom.
full screen, I think it works.
Let's see. Well, that's not better. Which one is full screen?
No, I mean, for the people watching, if you,
Yeah, there we go.
okay.
I can hide everybody down on the bottom on my screen. All right, let's get started. See, I learned something new. We've been doing these things for 18 months and I'm still learning. So here, at least it didn't shut off on me. I had one meeting where my screen shut off completely in the middle of the presentation. And I was like panicking because if I didn't get my screen back, I didn't know how I was going to finish the presentation, but managed to come back. Didn't happen tonight. Okay, so here's number 1. Number 2. Three. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So now I'm going to go backwards, starting at 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll do it one more time, a little bit faster. Starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So you're going to send your vote to vote at ngaphoto.club, not .com, but vote at ngaphoto.club. It's 8:40, so get your vote in by 9 o'clock, and we'll either announce the results tonight or sometime tomorrow. So watch the Facebook pages for that. Our next meeting is going to be on Friday, October 15th at 7 o'clock. Our presentation is going to be by Eric Bowles. We don't know the topic yet. He has a whole list of topics for us to choose from. So Michelle's working on that. And our photo challenge theme next month, we were talking about creativity. Next month, it's going to be abstract. And that's all I've got. Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a good evening.
Nice seeing everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike.
Anna.
Thanks
Thanks,
again
Mike.
for having me, you guys. It was
Bye, everyone.
great.
Thank you,
Great
Anna.
presentation.
Aw,
We'll
thank
be definitely
you.
be in
Thank you.
touch.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
And
very
keep
Bye,
much.
posting.
everybody.
And post a little bit more often.
It's been a rough couple weeks around here. We've been crazy busy, but I'll get back out there.
All right,
So
take care,
I'll see
everybody.
you
Have a
guys
good night.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.